So it sounds like both of you have said that you're focusing on getting that technical training in. So I think that this is a very nice way to segue into talking about the field tech piece that Casey is building out. Because the stumbling block is going to always be, how do you get those probationary files done if you cannot or haven't yet built out a relationship with an SO so that you have a path forward? And I think that's for a lot of the people that we're talking to who are in our programs, that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks or the blocker for why would I go through with this if that's what I'm up against, is trying to find the SO.
Right. Season 4 starts us off with a new to us format, a panel discussion. Episode 1 is a discussion about the role of energy advisors in Canada, co-hosted by Blue House Energy Program Coordinator Carla Harder and I. Our guests include Cindy Garrow, Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Consulting Energy Advisors, or CACE, and 2 Master Energy Advisors, Toby Smith with Building Knowledge Canada and Amélie Caron with EcoSynergy. So let's dive on in.
It'd be great to get a sense from each of you where you're at, how you engage with the sector. Like, what do you do in your EA world? Toby, could you kick that off for us?
Hi, I'm Toby Smith. I am a senior project manager with Building Knowledge Canada. We are located in southwestern Ontario, and we are a full services energy consulting, building science firm. We have energy modelers on site. We have energy modelers in the office mostly, and we have field technicians on site gathering information, doing air tightness testing, and then we have project managers in the office. So although I am a registered energy advisor, a master energy advisor through KC as well, I don't actually work as an energy advisor all that much. But it's a really good base, for my other work. So I'm really more of a project manager now. And that's something I was thinking of ahead of time of how to describe my role. And, I would say like an energy advisor was a big stepping stone to getting to where I am now, definitely.
How long were you in the field doing energy advisor work before you swapped out to something more?
Probably about 6 years, I would say. 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So I was doing it with a nonprofit organization, and then I had my own business, which a lot of energy advisors do, and I think that's how a lot of them get their start. As a subcontractor for another company or service organization. And I was lucky enough to find this role eventually, which is full-time position. And I'm not as worried about how much work I'm going to have this month.
Oh, that's a good thought.
You've seen it from all sides, Toby. It's interesting. Good perspective.
I have. Yeah. So I can definitely put myself in those people's shoes that are out in the field and are dealing with, incentive programs coming and going and one-on-one with homeowners or things like that.
Great. Yes. Thanks for that. Moving along to Amélie.
So my name is Amélie Caron. I'm owner and founder of EcoSynergy. We're based out of Alberta. I was going to say Canada, but that's kind of an oxymoron. They ask you all these things when you type. Anyway, so what we do is, yes, we do the energy advisor scope, so EnerGuide, but very similarly to Building Knowledge Canada, we do a lot more. We do envelope review, detail review, drawing reviews, site support, envelope troubleshooting, spec development. Like we do the energy advisor scope, but we're really a building performance consultants firms, just like Building Knowledge Canada. My role, a little bit like Toby again, I still do some field work. Like today, when somebody can't go or there's a scheduling challenge, then I go to site and I do the energy advisor scope of work. But my role started as an energy advisor in 2001, and I stayed in the technical field right up to maybe 4 years ago, when I was able to delegate that. So now we have a team that I've trained that does this kind of work. My strength is really in science. I have a master's in physics, so that's where my strengths come in. And that's where my role shifted from energy advisor to the science of it and behavior and involving the human component to how we build our houses.
Great. Okay. So very well-rounded as well. And interesting to get your perspective from a training perspective, right? Because you've also done that in terms of building your team. So that will factor into the conversation too. Thanks, Amelie. Moving on to Cindy.
Hello, I'm Cindy Garrow. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Consulting Energy Advisors. We call ourselves CASE. The A is silent at the end. So we are a national association that represents specifically energy advisors who either they're already registered, they're in the process of becoming energy advisors, but we also engage the larger Part 9 building community. We only deal with the sort of low residential Part 9 elements. We don't get into commercial per se. Toby and Emily are terrific members actually of the association. Emily is on our board, so I just have to put a plug in for her. She is also, like Toby, a Master Energy Advisor or MEA. So Casey is really committed to supporting a sustainable profession of energy advisors that are being seen as credible and respected. And that's really an important part of our organization. We actually require for our members a slightly higher requirement to demonstrate that KC members are sort of best in class. And we're pretty proud of that. I am not an energy advisor, so my role as the executive director is to help the board with and our members with what they want to accomplish. I do a lot of advocacy. I work with our different committees to provide education and training that energy advisors and our members would like to see, and just try and move the organization forward.
Great. Yes, we love working with Casey. So moving on from that, maybe Shawna, did you want to introduce yourself, or are you a silent participant?
I am never a silent participant, Carla. You should know that by now. So Shawna Henderson, CEO of Blue House Energy. I started out in this world in the early 1990s, like the very early 1990s. I was an O2000 inspector and evaluator, and then I became one of the very first energy advisors in Canada based on the work that I was doing as R2000. And then I had babies and I got to be a single parent, and I couldn't lug babies and a blower door around at the same time. So I moved more into consulting, but used all the background information that I had learned as an energy advisor to create my own consulting business. And then in 2012, we started Blue House Energy to take all of the stuff that I'd done in the field and put a USB port in my head and take it all out into training. So that's how Blue House Energy came about. And this is all I've done in my life. And I'm old.
That's enough.
Hey, careful. Careful.
Yeah, we don't do the age thing.
We don't do the age thing, no.
Great. Thanks, Shawna. And I'm Carla Harder. I work with Shawna in Blue House Energy and Casey and Building Knowledge Canada and a whole crew of other people. My background is actually in trades and technology and program development, but I've been able to take that and transfer it over to working in the energy efficiency realm and supporting Blue House Energy and learners, most importantly, which is really why we're here today. I get the brunt of the questions from newbies, people who are either thinking about getting into the training or have just taken the leap and are like, oh gosh, great, I love this, but what's going to happen when I finish my exams? This is like the penultimate question. And of course, as you all can anticipate, that leads right into probationary files. What are the challenges, and how can some of our learners overcome those challenges with regards to their probationary files? And any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll try to go ahead. I have done training classes for energy advisors. That was part of a couple different positions I've had, and I've done a little bit here at Building Knowledge. So there are definitely challenges. I would say in getting capable people to do the detailed review, that's a challenge. It's a lot of work to do a review on those probationary learning files. For both parties, for the new EAs that are doing them, it's brand new to them, so it can take a day or two to do one file instead of an experienced EA that might be 2 hours or 4 hours or something like that. So it's a lot of work for them, and then it's a lot of work and patience for the trainer or mentor to go through that with them in detail, right? Because they're going to have a lot of questions. So I would say that's a big challenge because there's not really a really robust system or procedure set up for doing that. NRCan has some tools I think they provide, but there's no economy set up around it either. I don't think. Like it usually, I guess service organizations are expected to just kind of do that work. So it's
Yeah, it's very much a mixed bag, I think, in terms of how it rolls out, because as you mentioned, there is no system set up other than a designation that SOs are, to do this as part of their license agreement with NRCan. That's my understanding. Is that yeah? So Amelie, what do you think? Can you think of ways to get around any of those challenges with regards to probationary files, or how to present, how for someone who is an EA candidate to present themselves to an SO in order to create a relationship that hopefully will result in them being able to do that work?
So I have a different perspective on how to hire people in this realm. I've never hired on a resume, which is unorthodox. And the reason for that is I feel that NRCan has painted the picture of the energy advisor work as a side hustle or a hobby career. People come into this thinking that they can do this on top of doing architectural design or doing a full-time position. And it's just not the reality of it. Like to become an EA, a well-versed EA, it's an entire new career. It's as steep as an engineer going to plumbing. There's nothing like it anywhere else. It's not taught in school. So going on a resume, in my view, is a little obsolete. So what I am for is somebody that has critical thinking, somebody that can read a house plan. Like when they buy a house, what kind of drawings do they get? Like if they can figure out what's a door, what's a window, generic stuff, then I'm okay with that. And then after that, somebody that is, that has a car, ideally, and a driver's license. But after that, it's more a personality thing, meaning that they have to be coachable. And I found that the ones that are least experienced are the easiest to train. simply because when somebody comes in and has 20 years of estimating or 20 years of project management for large construction builders, they have bias and they have their own train of thought. And it's very difficult to take that big train of thought and sculpt it into the mindset of an energy advisor, which is really the science of assumptions. There's no very specific, it's how do you manage assumptions and how do you make different decisions based on critical thinking. So we have a very different way of hiring. To answer your question, once I hired those people, then we have very robust internal processes. And that helps them greatly in their learning. At first, it's mechanical. So usually the trainee, the first file would take about 8 hours with our tools, including QA, a day and a half. Second file, 6 hours, including QA, 8 hours. And after that, they're within like one file done a day, including QA. And then it's just about getting into those motions and their rhythm. And so what we do is we start them with a builder, only always the same one, so that they know where to find all the information. And then once they get in the groove, then we give them another builder. Oh, now my windows are not the same place. My mechanical not. So now they get a different set of drawings and we roll them through. After that, we start getting into attached units and we push them through. So it is a step-by-step process. And as far as probationary, while different groups have different kind of levels, I like to push them through as far as their brain can handle. So in 5 models, I'll start with a 4-corner, 8 windows, normal basement little house. And then we'll go to a, maybe a walkout house, then a duplex, like side by side. For us Western duplexes are side by side, not up and down, hint, hint. And then after that, we go towards multiple basements and, if they can, a fairly difficult custom. So their probationary files won't be done all at the same time. They will be done over a 2-year period, and then I push them through the exam. So they get trained on modeling and site before they actually read the Enter Guide procedures, because all those procedures don't have any tangible explanation of what that is. Right? If you read the Hot 2000 user manual,
no context.
And Eve is. So I rather put them through technical first, and then they go through the exams, and now they connect all the dots. So it takes me about 2 years to train somebody from scratch.
So it sounds like both of you have said that you're focusing on getting that technical training in. So I think that this is a very nice way to segue into talking about the field tech piece that Casey is building out. Because the stumbling block is going to always be, how do you get those probationary files done if you cannot or haven't yet built out a relationship with an SO so that you have a path forward. And I think that's for a lot of the people that we're talking to who are in our programs, that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks or the blocker for why would I go through with this if that's what I'm up against, is trying to find the SO.
Right.
Toby, do you want to take that on first?
Well, can I just say one thing, though? I think it's really important that the people who are listening to this understand that neither Emily nor Toby are service organizations, right? I think that's really important to understand that. So Emily's way of training somebody is if she's bringing them on as an employee. And I do think that we have to have a conversation, and you deal predominantly with new construction.
Yes.
Right, both of you. And I think that there is a differential between new construction and existing homes. And, the challenge, what's happening right now, NRCan changed the proceedings for probationary files. So you have to declare at the beginning if you're going to do existing homes or you're going to do new homes. So NRCan, in order to become an energy advisor, you have to do a certain number of homes where you're observing either somebody from the SO or who the SO has identified as an experienced energy advisor, like Toby, like Emily. You observe them, and I think it's 2 files. Now the energy advisor candidate has to find 2 friendly files, their house, maybe their parents' house, and they have to do from start to finish blower door modeling. They have to do 2 files. They submit that to their service organization, who then does the quality assurance on those files. Then they have to do observed probationary two, I think it's 2, where they are being observed by a quality assurance specialist or that experienced energy advisor on each. And based on, the quality assurance, those are the minimum that NRCan is requiring. A service organization or employer, like Emily, you're saying, we require lots of files before we're ready to say you're ready to be a registered energy advisor. Now, let's say you want to work on both new construction and existing. You have to do it all over again in new construction. So it is, to Toby's point, it's a very expensive, because some service organizations will charge the energy advisor candidate to do this training, and it can be a couple $1,000s, because they have to take the time of high-level energy advisors in order to do this. So I think that, or they're going to do it for free, but they may garner your wages after the fact to make up for the investment that they have made. So I think that's really, just because you pass the exams, there's still some money that you're going to have to put out either directly or indirectly. And I think that's really important that people here understand that. And the other challenge is that because of the decline in grants now, in the existing home world, there are many service organizations and EA companies who are reluctant to bring on anybody because there isn't a lot of work for them. And so I think we have to manage the expectations. Now, if you are an energy advisor who wants to do your own thing and you're ready to hustle, then just keep at it. But I just wanted to I think that's really, really important. And the other thing too, and then I'll give Emily's dying to say something. NRCan has some interesting resources. They have 9 webinars, I believe, on doing the blower door testing and what's required. So they've already got some training out there on blower doors, which could be extremely useful. Many SOs are also wanting people to come to them with experience. It's sort of like that, you come out of university, you've got your degree, and people are saying, that's great, but you need experience. They're like, well, how am I going to get experience if you don't hire me? So I know that this is the quagmire that many people are facing today. And I'll shut up so that Emily can leap in.
So Toby might want to add to what I'm about to say, but ultimately, if somebody wanted to get training, because we've trained people that don't work for us. So we actually take an agreement with them and we charge them for some time, right? We charge them for all the QA. So they do get charged a big amount. I only do it like I break even, just so that they get the right support they need to excel. And then what we do is once they have those 5 files, we give them we push them through our SL. So they get a license to practice off the get-go after their 5 files. And we still support them in QA. And then if they want to leave and go elsewhere, then they have that experience. So we actually pave that SO path for them. And basically because we have a great relationship with our SO, which is the same as Toby's, they trust that we train them adequately and we send them the probationary files, they review them, so they give them a license. Now, whether or not that EA stays with that SO, that's up to that EA. But now they have the freedom of actually practicing. And I find if an energy advisor would go get training the group with who they get their training might resonate with the SO that wants to have them on board. Mm-hmm. All SOs are not equal, or the person, the energy advisor group that trained them. There's some names in industry that would say, oh yeah, they were stringent if they did the training to them. Same way as curriculum. So I think it's important that the energy advisor that wants to get training reaches out to groups that have a good reputation in the marketplace and that are known to be well-rounded. But on a quick note on the subcontractor and employee conversation, I know that a lot of energy advisors feel, again, because this is painted as a side hustle, not a full-time position, they're like, oh, I can do this on my own, and I'm going to be a subcontractor. I'm going to start my own little business. The thing about a subcontractor is that a subcontractor should be fully trained. The person or the employer or the group that hires a subcontractor should not have to train a subcontractor. That's the whole point of subcontractor, is they should come in with a blower, a license, all the exams they need, and experience. Because a subcontractor is an executor. And so they get paid more because they have all the upfront costs of educating themselves and training themselves, which is challenging. So if an energy advisor doesn't have the means to get through all this training, then they should consider an employment position either at an energy advisor group or a service organization, and then they get trained in-house.
Can you, as a group, one or more or all of you, clarify the difference between an SO, service organization, and an energy advisor organization or group? Because I think that's where we really find a lot of confusion.
I had that on my notes just to see if people watching this wanted to understand Amelie, and we've been all been throwing out terms like SO and NRCan. So Natural Resources Canada, which is a branch of the federal government, licenses these groups called service organizations. They're basically companies that have a license with the government to offer EnerGuide for houses services. And so those services are used new construction, existing homes, a lot of the performance programs, Energy Star, Net Zero R2000, maybe others, even LEED uses those type of that EnerGuide rating system. And so they have laid out procedures and ways on how to collect data on site or how to model files using their software and things like that. So that service organization, it has that license, and the service organization will very often hire subcontractors. They might have a small internal staff to do QA administration, stuff like that, training. And then they would hire subcontractors to go out and do that work. There are also, I think, more successful companies, such as ourselves, EcoSynergy, that are not based on that model. Basically, we are energy advisor companies. And so we work with a service organization to get files through, but we have a whole different business model. We don't have any subcontractors on our staff. So we hire salaried employees, with benefits and mileage for travel and things like that, which I think in terms of the field tech designation that was mentioned, I'm very excited about that, because I think if you want to scale this type of work, whether it's in new homes or existing homes, have to take a different approach. The approach that I kind of described there and what Amelie described with subcontractors, it's not very scalable. Training people quickly, who's paying for the training, how well are they being trained? There's a high demand, so sometimes they're maybe not being trained that well. They're just, let's get out there and get some work done and work, figure it out after. So yeah, I definitely support a different designation for EAs that can work in the field, or maybe even, I don't know how many designations we need, but because we have staff as well that basically just do file modeling and they don't go out in the field. So maybe we need a designation for that too, potentially, because they're very experienced. They understand the software, they understand procedures, but they don't know how to run a blower door.
So if I can jump in terms of the service organization, as Toby said, they are licensed with Natural Resources Canada, NRCan, and their requirements are to promote NRCan's programs that Toby mentioned. They're there to be a source of communication between NRCan and the energy advisors that they represent. So when NRCan makes changes to the program and such, it's the responsibility of the service organization to share that information, because NRCan doesn't want to have to talk to 1,500 energy advisors. It's a lot easier. The lines of communication are smaller when there's a smaller group of SOs. They're also responsible for providing the quality assurance on the files and providing support for the energy advisor. So that is their license agreement. The energy advisor, they're there to do the boots on the ground work. They do not submit their files directly to NRCan. They are submitted through the service organization. So that's partly why the SO is there, and that's where the quality control comes in and the support for the EA. So I think that's a really important distinction. There are different kinds of relationships with service organizations. So as Emily and Toby mentioned, there are some EAs who are employees of service organizations. There are some service organizations that do not take on any external people. All of the people that they are with are hired. There are some SOs that, as Toby said, have a couple of in-house because they have to. And then they outsource all of the EA work with subcontractors. We see this particularly in the existing home world. And then the EA so there's different pay models. So an EA may be given a certain percentage of the total of what the cost of that audit is. They may invoice and have to give the SO a certain percentage of what that is, and anything in between. Some SOs will rent the blower door equipment to EAs, so they don't have to buy. There's a lot of things to consider. Some of them, you may only be doing the field work and not the modeling. Again, particularly in existing home. So, and then there are some service organizations that just want to broker the file. So we see this a lot more in the new construction, that the energy advisor is out there on their own, doing their own thing. They may even be an EA company with a couple of other people, and they just send their files to that SO for a fee, so that it can go to NRCan. So there's many different relationships in this. Unfortunately, it's extremely confusing and not straightforward. And so I just want that to be clear. There's been some conversation about Casey looking at developing a field tech designation. This would be specific to new construction right now. And we are developing a designation where somebody would just be doing the blower door and maybe some data collection. We're just in the process of developing what that's going to look like. We will be piloting it out, but it would be the energy advisor like Toby or like Emily who would hire that field tech to do that work. So it's a Casey member. Right now, this is very much tied to Casey membership. And that field tech may also have to be a member of Casey because, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we hold our membership to a higher standard, and we have an extremely fulsome code of conduct and code of ethics that all members have to abide by. So I don't know if that helps make things a little clearer. And I know I've given Carla and Shawna a visual for that relationship that maybe they would share. And the other piece of advice I would do, like Emily said, research the people that you're reaching out to. And it can be difficult. But it's very important for you to think about, how do you want to work? Do you want to be an employee? Do you want some independence? Do you need a lot of support? How do you need that support? What are your values? Because you want to make sure, like any job, your values and work ethic is going to match the group that you're going to work with. The other final thing before Emily maybe shares, energy advisors can work for more than one service organization, and that service organization doesn't have to be in the same province. So you may see, if you go on the KC website, you may see that there's some EAs that have 2, 3, 4 different numbers. The EA number is associated with the SO that they are part of. And so some SOs, as Emily said earlier, they might only be able to do the Energuide label. But say the energy advisor wants to do CHBA's net zero, then they have to find a service organization who has been licensed by that label deliverer to do that. So again, I know I'm probably confusing everybody here, but it's not a linear process, but you have to do your research. And there are going to be some SOs that are saying, yeah, we'll take you on, no problem. And they may not be supportive for you. So then you have to think about I just want them for the number. How am I going to get my support? So.
Yes, it makes me dizzy.
I know, me too.
We'll
being in the industry and understanding it.
We'll use your graphic, and then I'll also create a little map for, like, if you did this, it would look like that. If you did this, it'll look like that. So we'll put that in. And I just wanted to clarify that when people are doing the outside of programs, that ERS rating is one of the ways that new builders actually can meet part of the code requirement.
That's right.
So that's big for new construction, as you know, and I just wanted to clarify that was in there, that there's these programs, but it's also code related. If you're building a new house, the way that you can get part of your energy advisor,
revenue.
No, that's not even the word. If you are building a new house,
permit.
Part of the way you get your permit, part of the way you get your code compliance piece for energy efficiency is with the ERS rating.
Yeah.
So that's really big because we're looking at a lot of new houses.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got it in my head. I couldn't stop saying energy advisor. I could like, what's the word? Energy efficiency. No.
I would just like to point out that if an energy advisor elects to do code compliance scope of work, that this just became legal. So errors and emissions is really important.
Can you explain that a bit more, Annalie? Can you explain what you just said?
The National Building Code is a legal document that mandates across Canada the minimum requirements for how we build anything. And it's legal. It's not a code like pirates. It's not a guideline.
There's no legal. Parlay.
There's no parlay. Some builders think it is. And I'm like, really? Anywho. So if an energy advisor that has limited experience wants to go down the route of doing 936 code compliance, which is either there's just a performance path, which is not quite like Energuide. And then there's the Energuide route, which is the scope is all the same. But now what the energy advisor submits to the city is legal. So if there's errors, if somebody would go back later and test and do something and it doesn't line up, that person is on the hook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like Energuide in like all these energy efficiency program, which are volunteer. There's no legal liability if you're doing built green, right? If the label doesn't quite come out the same and then they drop, now that's a conversation between the energy advisor and the builder, because now the builder's going to say, well, what the hell? But it stops there. Whereas when you're dealing with building code, there's a legal liability there. Mm-hmm. So I just want to put that out.
Yeah, very good to clarify that. Yeah.
Can I just touch on that? The fact that when you become an energy advisor, the only insurance requirement by NRCan is sort of general liability. Mm-hmm. So this errors and emissions is on top of what is required by NRCan. It is a requirement for KC members who are energy advisors. But I am also just, if you are looking for errors and emissions insurance, a bit of advice. Don't necessarily go to the same insurer who does your car or your home, because they don't understand the building sector. And so what will happen is that you will be lumped in with engineers and architects, which is at a higher rate of errors and emissions. So you want to make sure that you are going to an insurer that has an understanding of the construction industry. Otherwise, you could be paying too much.
Yeah, I did that. When I ended up moving into errors and emissions, I went to a commercial broker and worked really hard to get them clear on what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So, no, I'm not building a house. Yeah. No, I am not an engineer. No, this is what I'm doing, and it's a very narrow scope of work.
Yep.
And it's a lifesaver too, because I did get sued for something that I didn't do. It was something to do with the builder, but because my name was on a set of plans, right? So just cautionary tales, right? It took me 5 years to pay off what I had to owe, what I owed the legal team that helped me get out of that suit. Yeah. But nothing that happened was on my watch, right? Mm. So errors and omissions is key when you start to do anything that requires you to prove due diligence.
Right. Because there's the duty of care. It falls under
the
law.
That's the word I was
duty
looking for.
Of care.
Yes, duty of care.
It's tort law, and that's where it falls under. Okay. And for those of you who are on this, listening to this, I'm happy to put you in touch with an insurance provider that we suggest our members use. There are others out there. I can't say they're the cheapest, but at least they understand, the work that energy advisors do, and it's a good starting point.
Right. Be mindful that not every insurance group understands their scope. Yep. So it's really important that the EA explains it, because that group doesn't insure us in Alberta. So I don't know why.
But they do in Ontario. You do other things. That's why.
Maybe.
It's because you do other things. You don't just do EA work. That's why.
You know what? That would make sense. Okay, cool.
Okay, super valuable insights on the legal stuff and on the nature of the SO relationship and the EA. Very critical. It's one of the biggest questions that we get asked over and over again, is that whole pool of how do I connect? Who are they anyway? What is my best pathway? So yeah, really helpful. I would also say just very quickly that we probably get 80% of the people that I speak to from Blue House Energy's perspective in terms of fielding inquiries, about 80% of them just see it as an add-on to something they're already doing. I mean, that's how they see the profession as something that they can dip into and dip out of. So I frequently mention Casey and the whole consulting versus, world versus becoming sort of an independent EA. So with just a purely tech focus.
And I'll just say, I've been doing this type of work since 2002, and before KC, it was even more of a Wild West, if you will. You were basically at the whim of NRCan. Well, NRCan says this, you have to do it, and there was very little recourse or anything like that. There was no input or very little input from EAs or service organizations. So I really appreciate the fact that we have a association representing us now.
Yeah.
Great. And I'll jump in we've been, when Casey came about, I think Cindy and I had one of the very first conversations about, okay, so tell me about this industry and tell me about what this is. And so Blue House has been a member since inception. And we're on the education committee. And, one of the reasons that we do what we do is to help to create that pipeline that puts people in, and then obviously something like this panel discussion to say, okay, so now you're in, now what?
Yeah.
How are you going to manage that? And there was something else I was going to say. It'll come back.
I have some thoughts while you're thinking, Shawna. I think who you've seen today are some highly experienced energy advisors, and what I hear constantly from our members, once you become a registered energy advisor, that's when the real learning and experience comes into play. That's why it's important. This is not a side hustle, because you're going to forget things. First of all, if you're only doing like a couple houses a week, now there are many SOs that aren't going to want you to do that. They won't take you on. Some of them are only going to take you on with a commitment of a certain number, because the SOs, they're a business, right? Even if they're a nonprofit, they're still a business. You're going to forget maybe what you've seen. You're going to go into a home that you've never seen anything like it, particularly if you're in existing homes. Existing homes are probably in some ways more difficult to do work on than new construction. And so it's very important that you build your knowledge of not only building science, but construction practices, and having an understanding. And unfortunately, the way you become licensed is a little sideways. And so you're being tested. And so I think that's why we were talking earlier about the field tech. Recognize that this is a profession. It's not a trade for the most part, or at least if you're wanting to make this a long-term commitment. And one of Casey's, I mentioned earlier, we're about a sustainable profession. And that comes to diversification of the work that you're doing. So when you become an energy advisor, continue learning, take additional courses, look at how you can leverage the general competencies, if you will, of being an energy advisor, and how could they translate into perhaps a secondary service. So Emily mentioned the code compliance. Even if you're just doing existing homes, you might be able to assist with the modeling for code compliance. You know, so think about, don't just think about, well, I'm an EA and this is what I do. Keep your mind broader. And that's, again, where maybe being part of organizations like Casey can be helpful to make you think bigger. And even if all you want to do is existing homes and go in and just do the program verification, it's still really important. And that's fine. They're EAs, that's all they want to do. They don't want to go into the deeper dive. But you still want to make sure that you're up to date on things, and that you're, you know, you really are learning and making the best of what you've invested in. So that's something I think is really important. So that's why Casey, we look at similar kinds of skill sets that can go for other designations, and we look for partners. So like maybe in the HVAC side of things, in integrated design. So when you get into this, don't say, well, there's no work as an EA. Well, then you're limiting yourself.
Thank you for bringing that up, Cindy, because really the energy advisor is only EnerGuide. And I don't know for you, Toby, but like the majority of our work is not EnerGuide.
Yeah,
Our work,
we're about
EnerGuide is yours majority EnerGuide?
No.
But you're,
so
again, new construction.
yeah, new construction, yeah. And in existing, it's probably even less unless there's a program that supports it, because most homeowners don't renovate their houses unless they're paid to do it.
And that's definitely how I, as a consultant, I have made my living off of the understanding and information that I gained, the knowledge I gained as an energy advisor way back when. 20 years of consulting completely outside of being able to submit files to an SO. Me to the place where I've got two companies that I run. One is the consulting and one is the training. So you can meld it into something that fits you really, really well, and you can go down the rabbit hole that is your favorite rabbit hole, whether it is new construction, net zero renovations, whatever it is. You can fire down that hole and just be the best that you can get to, right? And whether you're working with an SO as an independent person or moving back into that energy advisor organization that supports you and helps you move ahead and stay ahead, there's endless possibilities.
But even that side training, like Cindy was saying, even if it's not related to your job, it's still very useful, right? Like it's all connected. It's back to this house is a system thinking, right? So, if you start to learn about how heat loss, heat gain's done and how equipment sizing, well, then now you can take that information to your clients and say, oh, I see when they, put in this furnace, this and this happened or whatever it is.
Right. So you could become a third-party verifier informally, as opposed to the you become more of an expert, and that's one of the things
you bring more value.
Yeah, one of the things that I've talked to my clients is I'm basically the cheapest thing you can find in terms of verifying what's going to go in your house, right? Like I don't sell anything. I don't sell products. I don't sell equipment. I don't sell anything. What I'm doing,
you
what
work
I'm here
for them directly.
Is I work for you, the homeowner, or you, the builder. I'm not trying to steer you. I'm not saying like I got an investment in a spray foam company, so spray foam is number one. I don't do any of that. So that's a position that is really lucrative when you're talking to homeowners because they don't know who to trust, right?
Can I just raise something? Because we're, really, I think the part of this conversation was, okay, so you've done the exams, now you need to find a service organization. There are I want to do a cautionary sort of potential red flag that's out there, particularly in existing homes. There are service organizations that will say, we're happy to bring you on. We're happy to train you. You have to do 8 to 10 audits a day for 5 days a week. You as an energy advisor, when you pass your exams, know what is allowed by NRCan. It is your license on the line, regardless of what that service organization says. So you have, it's your choice to go with that SO. The other thing is that in existing homes, many of the SOs, the way that they get their money is through, or their leads, is through relationships with suppliers and contractors, because often the homeowner sees that there's a grant or an incentive. Oh, well, we talked about changing our windows, and they go directly to a window provider. The window provider then has a relationship with the service organization, so that the service, they can say, well, we need an EA to go to Mrs. Jones' house because they want to buy our windows. So if that service organization says to the EA, okay, the Jones want windows, make sure that's what you recommend, you are violating your license with Natural Resources Canada. And unfortunately, the SOs will say, we're going to fire you if you don't do it. So this is when I say, you need to make sure when you're selecting an SO, what are your values? What are their values and business model to make sure that it agrees and you are not jeopardizing your license, because you can't go back to NRCan and say, well, I couldn't work because unless I did this. Well, you know what the rules are.
I'd also like to add to that. The other thing about being a subcontractor is that you're going to sign a contract. And I would recommend to anybody that's getting into subcontractor agreements to have your contract reviewed by a lawyer. Because although there are really clear do's and don'ts in subcontractor agreements, it is also left to the person signing it to be aware of those do's and don'ts. So if you sign it and there's illegal clauses in your contract, you signed it.
Yeah. Don't go to your real estate lawyer either for this. Go to somebody who understands, contractor agreements.
And it could just be your lawyer. Go to your local law firm, take an appointment. They'll charge you $100, $200 to read the contract. It's 1 hour of their time. Don't go to, the big firms. Go to the little guy.
Yeah.
A notary. That's all you need. You just need somebody that understands corporate law and employment agreement and subcontract agreement.
And the labor laws of that
province. And the labor laws of that province. So you don't need a shark like suits.
No.
Yeah.
You just
So-
need somebody that understands that information.
So we have here in, this is a shameless plug, here in Nova Scotia, my daughter's partner works with Dalhousie Legal Aid, and they have a beautiful, tidy little business development section now that will, for $100 for each piece, help you to form a company or create bylaws for your company or read through a contract with you or create a contract. So that's here in Nova Scotia. I'm sure that's reflected in legal aid through a university.
There's lots of resources
or
out there.
some
for this kind of
associations
service.
do it and everything. Yeah.
Right.
But I
So
think
there's lots
that's
of stuff
really,
out there. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that people weren't like, now I need a lawyer. I'm still trying to figure
here's
this out.
cha-ching, cha-ching. Yeah.
There's inexpensive ways to do it. And also there are some various legal issues in houses courses out there that are inexpensive. When we wrap this up, I'll put some in the information that goes out.
It
So I'm
isn't
just
going
looking.
to be easy, Carla. I'm just going to say it isn't going to be easy for people who pass the exams.
Yeah.
Especially in the current environment. But if you're truly committed, don't be disheartened. You know, just keep plugging away. And to Emily's point, you're also selling who you are and what you can, the solutions that you can bring to whoever it is you're trying to have a relationship with, whether it's a service organization or an energy advisor company or whatever. So,
Yeah. Okay. So just hearing the nuts and bolts is really going to be super helpful.
Okay.
For learners. This is great. Go ahead, Toby.
I just wanted to add, it's unfortunate, we've kind of been talking about the difficulty of it, but it is a very rewarding profession. You get to talk with all sorts of different people. You're constantly learning, very dynamic. Things are changing. It's never boring. Exciting, lots of new changes, and there are opportunities. Like I started out totally green, just doing almost like administration for a service organization, right? And then learned technical stuff and was open to opportunities. Like I forget who mentioned that earlier, Carla maybe. I was always staying open to opportunities, and they presented themselves, and if you take advantage of them, you can work your way up.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that this is not a straight line career path, right? I think that, and when we look at the people who have filled out surveys for us and who Carla talks to, this is a very eclectic group of people who are attracted to this field and to this career path. And one of the things that we see that are really like go across the whole spectrum of whether people are right out of school, deep into the construction industry, or looking for a mid-career change, is they're problem solvers. They have massive amounts of curiosity, and they really want to engage those two pieces of their makeup into a career piece. And that's, for me, that's why I'm still here, right? 30 years in, I'm still here because it is interesting and challenging and ever changing and just fascinating to me. So those are there's a personality type, I think, that will sort of shake out of all of this. As if you want to just go by the book and you're looking for, like Amelie said earlier, what did you say? Oh, it's a science of assumptions. If you want a concrete problem, not for you.
Right.
At least in this way, possibly something like a field tech position where it's more cut and dry. That's it. But the best and the longest lived energy advisors that I know are kind of unicorns right now. right? There's because you have to have
Magical
that
unicorns.
magical. But you have to have that sort of double-edged thing of being able to be really technical and use that modeling to sort of, fire down that line, but then open up your brain really wide so you can see, especially in the existing homes, what the heck is going on and how is this 3D puzzle manifesting itself and how do I solve the issues, right? So that's, I'll probably stop there because I could go on for a long time, but it's not my panel discussion.
But even if technical is not your cup of tea, you still have to pass the exams, but maybe you go off in a business development direction, right? Or administration or something like that, processes.
I'm so deep into this that I'm absolutely and completely biased. I will not ever deny that. But getting this fundamental training, whether you go through the whole 2-step process or whether you go into foundation and go, this is really super interesting and I like this stuff, this is not going to harm you in any way, shape, or form if you are already in the construction industry or you want to get into it, because this is the baseline for which we're starting now, right? 30 years ago, I was on this weird little vanguard. I just happened to fall into this magical place and all sorts of training with and stuff when they were doing training. But now it's in the code, right? The code is requiring energy conservation measures and improvements. So you need to know how to maintain the other parts of the code, which is durability and safety, through when you're doing that energy efficiency work, right? Because we all know about the dreaded unintended consequences, right? You trap moisture in a wall and you have ruined somebody's house and their biggest investment. That's quite a bit of load on your shoulders.
What it will change, though, is you'll never look at a house the same again.
It's true.
You'll never look at a house and just be like, oh, that's a nice.
They're great. This has been very wide-ranging topics, very natural, free-flowing, and super on point to things that, our learners and people that I just speak to in general and the general public is just going to raise more awareness about the professionalism of the career and where it can go, all the different career paths. Great information. Thank you, Toby, Amelie, Cindy, Shawna. Really great, super valuable information. I can hardly wait to put the subject line will be do not miss this for people that are, very insightful.